Hi, my brothers and sisters. It is Satisfaction Saturday. This is Pastor Paul Anderson from the Fountain of Raleigh Fellowship, where we believe God's blessings never stop flowing. Let's look to see what God has to say to us from his word. In Judges, the 6th chapter, beginning at verse 15. But Lord, Gideon replied, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I am the least of my entire family. The Lord said unto him, I will be with you, and you will destroy the Midianites as if you were fighting against one man. Gideon replied, if you are truly going to help me, show me a sign to prove that it's really the Lord speaking to me. Don't go away until I come back and bring my offering to you. He answered, I will stay here until you return. Gideon hurried home. He cooked a young goat, and with a basket of flour, he baked some bread without yeast. Then, carrying the meat in a basket and the broth in the pot, he brought them out and presented them to the angel who was under the great tree. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be unto God. Now, Gideon finds himself on the Satisfaction Saturday that he says, okay, Lord, if you are really with me, I need to remind you that my clan, my family are the least of the tribe of Manasseh. Who am I to lead in what you've asked me to do? It lets us see, first of all, that God reminds us if he is with us, that's more than the whole world can be against us. My brothers and sisters, we have to remind ourselves all things start out small, but they become bigger when we see how big our God is to work with it. Had it not been for those few people who thought about how important it was for us to navigate through life and to make our way to the movement of the 50s and the 60s to make sure things will happen as they should. Whoever would have thought our Supreme Court of this land would make a decision as it made earlier this week? We have to ask ourselves the question, Lord, are you at work in all of this? Gideon lets us see, even though it looks like it's slim, I am with you. God, if he promises us he's going to be with us, he's going to be with us. It sounds like Gideon is like many of us. He's making excuses for why God cannot use him. God can use us in the midst of any and every situation if we just make ourselves available. So notice what he says. He says this to the angel. He said, okay, so if I know this is who it is and what God is saying to me, let me first of all do what I'm supposed to do. He said, let me go home. Let me cook something. Let me bring an offering. It was a part of the tradition and the custom anytime when you're in the presence of God that you bring God an offering. We see that in our contemporary society. When we go to worship, when we think about how good God has been to us, we bring him an offering to say thank you for what you've done. We see it in the Old Testament. When Cain and Abel were in the presence of God, they brought an offering. But all of us make sure that our offering comes from the sincerity of our heart. We're not just doing something with the anticipation of if I do this, I'll get that. But no, it has to come sincerely. So Gideon runs home. He does what is needed. He said, Lord, I need for you to show me that you are present. The text later on reads and lets us understand that Gideon had to know that the Lord was with him. He said, I'm going to bring you an offering. Notice what happens in the text. He hurried home. It lets all of us know we should hurry home. We should make sure everybody in our house knows what God is doing. We need to make sure everybody knows that God is talking to us. Gideon goes home. You know, you can't go home and cook without having conversation with the family. Gideon had to tell everybody, I believe in the text that we don't see that Gideon had to inform his family, I have heard from God. Now I'm taking him an offering. You know, when we hear from God, he receives our gifts. He sends us out to do the work he's called us to do. My brothers and sisters, I hope you and I can get excited on this 7th day of the week. Saturday is the last day of the week. To be satisfied. God, I have heard your voice. God, I have brought the best I could bring. Now, God, I'm waiting to get further instructions. I need for you to speak to me. Gideon now, at the point of the text, he brings God what God needs. He presents it before him, and now he's waiting to hear back from God. So that meant Gideon had to pause for a moment. Lastly, I want to remind all of us on this Saturday, of satisfaction in knowing that God hears our voice, we need to listen to the voice of God. Gideon has to pause to make sure he gets the instruction from God. I want to invite you. I want to invite myself. Let's use Saturday as a day of pause. It tells us from the Old Testament that on the Sabbath day was the day in which the seventh day was the day in which they rested. Now, as New Testament Christians, we worship God on the first day of the week because we do it because it was the resurrection that they went to the tomb and they celebrated. So our first day of the week, we come in celebration. My brothers and sisters, we need to thank God for what he's done for us. Let's take a pause. Let's listen to what God has to say so we can start out the first day of the week the way it's supposed to be. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning in worship, and we thank God for how he speaks to us. May he speak to us all. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so very much for your prayerful support and all the things that we have done in ministry to help so many others. We encourage you to please remember to sow a seed. We sow seeds in more ways than one. We can tangibly sow a seed into this ministry by going to thefountainofraleigh.org and click at the donate button. It is from there you can safely and securely give through PayPal, or else you may use the Tithely app. We thank you so very much for your generous support in times past, and we thank you for your present support and what you will do in the future. May God richly bless you, exceedingly and abundantly above all that you're able to ask, say, or think, according to his power at work in you. God bless you.